Hello and welcome to Chess Please. Now, if you look up how to get better at chess, 10 times out of 10, part of the advice that you'll find online and in person is to analyze your games, is to look back over games you've played, generally games that you've lost or drawn, but also games that you've won, and try to find where you went wrong, gaps in your knowledge, tactics you missed, openings you played wrongly. And that all makes total sense, but I find there isn't so much practical advice on how to actually go about analyzing your games. And I actually don't think it's the most straightforward thing, and I don't think it's something that you should go straight to the computer analysis for. So in this video, I'm going to play a game of chess, and then I'm going to share my 3-step, pretty rudimentary method of analyzing my games in a way that is like fun for me, that I actually get a lot of enjoyment out of, doesn't drive me crazy in terms of having to go through every single permutation that the computer offers, and is also free. You don't have to use the chess.com like game review advanced feature. You can just look at some of the analysis boards, and we'll show you how to do that very practically on the site. But first of all, we need a game to review, so let's jump in and play that now. Okay, so here we have our game that we're going to review, and honestly, knowing that we're going to review it, hopefully it makes me play a little better. But if we lose and we play terribly, then we'll have a chance to learn. So this is the England Gambit. I am going to accept this gambit. I just kind of want to see where this goes. I'm going to give them back the pawn. Well, we don't actually have to yet. I'm just going to develop this knight. And listen, if they take back there, that's fine. That's 2 moves with the knight. Taking here does let them bring their bishop out. That's kind of part of their plan. So this might be the point at which we kind of give back our own. We give back their pawn. We don't like sort of play by their rules. Which I don't mind. We're just going to open up our bishop here, potentially to pin this knight. If they take here, we're going to take their queen, and that'll be fun for us too. Yes, okay. I think now we're going to pin the knight, which is good stuff. As I mentioned, this is very possible. This is very possible should they decide to take. Okay, the knight is now double pinned. There's no definitive reason to castle just yet. We're actually not in danger of being checked at the moment. It's our queen who's maybe a little bit looser. So with that in mind, how's about we just continue our development like so? That might be an interesting move for them. Yep. I'm tempted to dip back here and keep the pin on the knight, but then they can just get this pawn rolling up the board, and we're kind of getting a little hemmed in here. And then we just drop back here. Actually, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Now that I've actually looked at it deeper, they come here, we come here. This is a good square for the bishop. Oh, this is even better. Okay. Don't hate that at all. We are just going to continue our development. Now, the trading of queens is not so much of a problem anymore for them. They can actually come here. Take the... Oh yeah, they can just take this pawn. Which isn't great. But that's a... No, they can't because of this. So... interesting game. I don't remember playing a game like this, which is a lot of fun and a perfect example of when to analyze, because this is, as I say, the England Gambit. It's not one I'm familiar with, and when that happens, oftentimes you can very easily slip into your opponent's nefarious plans because they know this better than you do. So you kind of just have to fall back on your principles, do some calculating to see, are we hanging anything? Is there any sort of tactic that we can do here? We have hung on to this pawn for very, very long. It's kind of a liability at this stage, but I'm also like, either way they capture here, I think it's fine. So I think now might be the time where we just castle. We just get castled. There's also an opportunity to move our queen up here, but then that just leaves that. So I think that's not what we want to do. Maybe we'll make this bishop make a call before we get castled. Yeah, I think I like that. This is just, it's just a right old headache. If they jump back there, okay, that's fine. I don't mind that so much. Okay, okay. Lot of clean open air into our position, which I don't love. But I still think this is the side to castle on. This is what we're going to do, because the knight's still pinned. Even if the knight comes here, we can take here with check. So it doesn't matter that it's attacking our queen. So we can just push this. And if they decide to push now, well, that's not a bad move. Right, so one thing we have to consider is the sacrifice. Sacrifice I'm talking about here is this. Take, take, take. You keep the knight pinned, you open up the king. These two pawns in front of the castle king are worth more than this knight, who he could become pretty strong. I'm not going to lie to you about that one. But these two pawns, very hard to replace. Very hard to replace that kind of coverage over here. And we keep the pin on the knight. I can stand over it. I can stand over the sacrifice. And again, we'll just make a little note. This might be one that the computer will help us out with. So we'll keep that pin going. Next moves are to get our queen over here to maybe push this pawn. Actually, like, this is just going to be really dangerous. So I don't think we need to mess around too much more than just hoovering up the board with this pawn. Oftentimes when you've got kings castled on opposite sides of the board, that's the plan. The plan is just pull like a dog and wait to get to the finish line. King could step over here into the mouth of the beast, the belly of the beast, as it were, the mouth of the beast. We're just going to keep on pushing here. The problem they need solved. The knight is now pinned again, and we might win. Or they can't even stop that. Now then. This interests me as a double ploy. King being here helps us quite a lot, actually. Well, that looks very interesting to me. Just taking here. The knight takes. You take with the bishop check. Whatever happens after that is none of my business. Yeah, I think we just take here. There's also this, so we're all grooving. We're all pals here. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so this is a nice one. This is a nice one to analyze, but maybe this is just me patting myself on the back. If it's a good game, maybe we didn't do great there. So anyway, regardless of that, we won that game. That was actually really fun. So I'm glad that it went like that. They don't all go like that. But what I'm going to do, so you'll see this thing pop up here. It's going to analyze your game. It's going to prompt you to use the game review. And my recommendation is don't use the game review. And we will use the engine analysis. I'm not like a Philistine that says like don't use the computer. But I do think that outsourcing all of your critical thinking to a computer at the first sign of difficulty is going to kind of dull your senses a little bit. So that's my soapbox about this. But what I would say before we go into this, we are going to review later on, not via the game review, but actually via a little side option here that I'll show you. So the first phase of analysis is just looking back over your game as a human person with your own mind and your own thoughts. And what you're looking for is really critical moments that you want to then use the computer to look a little more deeply at. And I also like to kind of play the role of like imagining myself as like a sports broadcaster telling people about this game. So what is the story of this game? What happened in quite layman's terms? Not really getting into a lot of specific moves. Maybe there'll be one or two that stand out. So looking at this, they had an England gambit, which I'm not particularly familiar about. So I didn't walk into it. I didn't accept the gambit fully. I let them take this pawn back if they wanted to, and just focused on developing my own pieces to good squares, getting our bishop out, getting our knight out, protecting our bishop, as I say, from this attack, getting our other bishop out. And then I wanted to solve this pin, because this pin was annoying me in my thinking time and time again. This pawn, this knight being pinned, this knight potentially at some stage, not right now, coming to attack that pawn. That was annoying. So we tried to kick the bishop out. I was so relieved to see that take, because once we capture here, our problems are all kind of solved. I really didn't mind that. You could technically, the knight can maybe take the pawn back. You take here with check, and the knight can take back. That's fine. That's fine. We're in a much better position there, I think. So that all happens. They capture there with the pawn, which I'm also pretty delighted to see. And now it's a case of we have opposite side castles, I should say. We're on the king side, they're on the queen side. Generally, when that happens, a very simple plan is a pawn storm. Just push the pawns, crack one of the sides open like an egg, get your pieces over there. And because you don't have to take much care of these pawns, they can just be used as battering rams through. And then this is a critical moment that I want to look at with the computer in a sec. Does this sacrifice work? For me, it's kind of a no-brainer, because you're only giving up one pawn, because it's a knight for these two pawns. You get to keep the pin on the knight here. You also get to open up the queen side where their king is. So I think when we ask the computer in a second, it will say it was good, but I do want to double check that. And from there, we're able to actually exert some of that pressure with the open queen side and just pushing a pawn, just making them really worried about this. And like, we're so close to promoting here, so everything that they're doing, they do have to keep that in mind the whole time. And we get this rook on a lovely square that is causing havoc. It's pinning the knight, which is already pinned. They kind of panic a little. They push that pawn, but their position is collapsing already. And we are able to pin the queen to the king. So yeah, that's just what happened there. Again, this is a good one because we won, so it's a little easier. It's a little bit more patting myself on the back. But I want to take away from that, did the sacrifice work? And what happened there was opposite side castling. They didn't really have any threats on our king side. We had a ton of threats on their queen side. That's why we won. Why did we win? Critical moments. Now we're going to go to the analysis section. And again, you have the option to do the game review. I'm going to go full screen here just to give you the practical view of this. So you have the option to go with game review, but I would actually recommend if you go to this self-analysis button there. Self-analysis kind of feels like what we just did. I mean, it kind of is. But this way you actually get the computer moves, the computer suggesting the moves as well here. So now I'm going to use the computer. And the first thing I'm going to do with the computer is check the opening. Now, this is a really nice way to actually brute force learn an opening, because you can actually just go through your first couple of moves. Let's put d4 on the board. I'm pretty sure d4 isn't going to be a mistake. And over here, the computer will tell you if it was good or bad. So d4 is a book move, meaning that this is just like a well-studied, like well-used opening. It's not good or bad or indifferent. It is good. It's solid. But it's basically from like opening preparation, which is good. That's good for us. So they play e5. Again, this is going to be a book move. This is just establishing the England gambit. A book move is kind of a way that the computer is like, this isn't actually that good if a computer played it, but humans play it very well. So we're not going to call it a mistake. We're just going to call it a book move. It's in the book. So we respond with a book move, which is great. It means we haven't made a mistake yet, so far as the theory goes. Another book move. We get our knight out. That's another book move. And I'm not kind of going to dredge this because, again, You could do this with every single move, and then you're actually just trying to remember how well a computer plays. We're just going to play the first like 5 or 6 moves and look for any inaccuracies, look for any mistakes. Now, I don't recommend going through the whole 20 move game with a fine-tooth comb and looking to see like where you did a good move and you could have actually looked for an excellent move. Like, that's going to take you too long. You're going to be pulling your hair out trying to figure out what the computer was trying to tell you. So if you just limit it to the first 5 moves, or even if you're very like new to a particular opening, you don't really know what you're doing, limit it to the first 3 moves and just understand, are you making any glaring errors in the opening? Is there a better or best move that you could have played? And then the next time, like you can memorize 3 like moves out of an opening or of a particular response to an opening, and very slowly, like you do this, you repeat this, you'll start to remember, okay, the computer said this was best, and you don't want to take it at face value, but early on it should be pretty easy to see why the computer is recommending certain moves over others. So in this case we have an inaccuracy, which normally I wouldn't lose too much sleep over, but in this case, because it's the opening, I do want to see what they actually say, how to respond here. So I'm going to take back this move. We're not going to play the inaccuracy, we're going to play the computer move here. And the reason I love this self-analysis mode is because you can actually just sort of play around with the pieces like this, whereas the game review, you're kind of railroaded into the game as it was, and the coach fellow will be like, oh, you could have done this, and it'll show you 6 moves. But this one you can actually get a bit more tactile, kind of move the pieces around. So the idea here being is we get a piece developed, we put pressure on the queen here. I think it's kind of a way to discourage... I'm trying to think what the computer means by this, which is a tricky part of understanding what to do. Let's even pop up the lines here. So again, if you go these 3 dots, you say engine lines. These are kind of the top 3 like sort of responses of computer play, how a computer will play this position. So they might play F6, which makes a lot of sense to me. Looks a little risky, but we will take here. They'll take back. And now the kind of we've consolidated our extra pawn. So I think that's what the computer is saying, is if you go like this, we don't have to, like, we gave back this pawn. That was just my thinking. I was like, let's not play into their hands, and if we take here, they can develop here for free. But this bishop move is a good way to keep the extra pawn, and you know, potentially not have them develop so much quicker than us. They're spending time to kind of defend this, so we can just do this. And you know, if they even take here, then that's just ruined their kingside structure, so I don't mind that. So that's the one inaccuracy I'll take away. Okay, so instead of just like sort of blindly giving back that pawn like so, we actually might try to keep this pawn, or keep the material advantage in a little roundabout way. So that's good. Bishop to b5. That's what I'll play now against the England Gambit. And we'll do one more. We'll do the we'll do the 5th moves as well. So what did they play in response to this? They played bishop out here. That was fine. And an accuracy for them, but that's none of my business. We have to face inaccuracies all the time. And we bring our own bishop out here, which is excellent. I don't really mind. Like, again, maybe we're looking at like what's best if I came up against this opening more frequently. But for me, excellent is fine. So that just tells me you don't need to like really reshape your thinking too much over how you're going to play this opening. So that's 5 moves. I would stop here. I wouldn't even like bother going too much further until I am much more familiar with the England Gambit, so that it, you know, I actually have a reason to go and learn this. But that's, you know, one way. Now I know we don't necessarily just blindly give back this. We bring our bishop out here. So that's phase 2, is the opening. Now it is a great way to learn an opening because it's very practical. You get to practice it. It is based on your own real games. It's not all just like theoretical book stuff. So a fun way to just sort of slowly kind of chip away, kind of digging in the mine of like opening knowledge, just one move at a time, just one extra move at a time, and like it's off the back of you playing games. Now the last thing that I'll do with the computer as part of this analysis is I will go through to the critical moment that I talked about, which was the knight sacrifice, just to see if this was, you know, a good or bad. So this is where it sort of happens. And let's see what the computer says about our knight sacrifice. Was it a mistake? Was it an inaccuracy? An inaccuracy? Yes, it was an inaccuracy. And that is a little disheartening insofar as, like, okay, it wasn't actually the best move. We could have just played it simple with dropping the bishop back here. We like a spicier move. And inaccuracy is, again, nothing to lose too much sleep over. Generally hasn't done like an outrageous amount of harm to your position, but you play enough inaccuracies in a row, you might not fare so great. So the knight sacrifice might have been a little premature. We could have just kept the pressure up, probably because of the reason we mentioned, where this knight did have a very bright future. It would have been a super piece here. And particularly they don't have a light square bishop anymore, so this square is actually a complete automaton. So that's probably why this sacrifice isn't like the computer's favorite. But an inaccuracy for a sacrifice, I'm okay with that. I'll take that. And then from here, as I say, there's nothing too grave that I'm concerned about. We were winning, and this is why I kind of don't recommend like going really deep down the well of computer analysis. Is either when you're winning or you're really, really losing, you can spend a lot of time like going through each and every move and play like, oh, I played a good move here, but I didn't play an excellent move, or I played an inaccuracy here, when you were like 4 points of material down or up. And it's actually not that impactful on the game. I would try to keep it in as like practical human terms as possible, that you can understand. I think that's just it's just a more fun way to analyze your games, and I think it's a fun way to get better. It's a fun way to use your own games to start thinking about like games as a whole rather than just specific moves, or just reacting to certain moves. Start thinking about how your moves impact the whole game, and maybe downstream where certain moves have an impact, and also how to win an opening, how to learn your openings in a nice, fun, gradual way. So to recap the 3-step method: go over the games yourself, no computer, just look at it, tell yourself what happened, tell yourself where things went wrong, note any couple of instances where you like really had a nice deep think in the game, try to understand if that was the best move, try to understand like, you know, where you might have been able to go if there was something you missed. Second phase, look at the opening, look at the first 5 moves, or depending on how well you know the opening, look at just 3 moves if you're not that familiar, look at 10 moves if you're pretty familiar with it, and just from there just slowly build out your opening repertoire based on the games that you're playing, based on the moves that your opponent are making. And then we use the computer to look at any of those kind of critical moments, just to understand, you know, you spent a lot of time thinking about this. There is kind of a correct answer when you have a chess engine involved. There's probably a few relatively correct answers, but anytime you're dedicating that amount of time in the game, it's going to be more impactful, given that you've spent that time already, to then go and look at the answer at the back of the book, rather than if you just use the computer analysis from Jump Street, that's just looking at the back of the book straight away, just finding the answer straight away, just getting them handed to you, which I don't think is going to be that good for like retention. I don't think it's going to be that good for, it's not that enjoyable just to be like, oh, here's the answer, and just be like, okay, whatever. This method I think is a little bit more involved, it's a little bit more engaging, and again, as I say, I get a lot of fun from it. So that is how to analyze your games. I hope that makes sense. I hope you get some joy out of doing your analysis like this. Again, this was a nice win, so maybe not the most impactful analysis we'll ever run, but it is a great way to get better at chess, and it doesn't have to be stodgy and boring and homework. It can be a kind of a nice fun recap like this. So that is going to be all from me today, folks. I hope you had a good time, and feel free to subscribe and stick around for more chess content, and as always, enjoy your chess. Take it easy.